Hello again, and welcome back to episode 36 of the Pregame Network podcast. This is Dan and Anthony. Again, two lifelong idiot friends that just love video games so much that we want to talk about them on the internet forever.
Very much so.
Um, yeah, so it's kind of a light week for me, so I'm going to defer to you for a lot of this stuff, but
It was a
we
it
could
was a
start
busy
off.
holiday season.
Yeah, yeah. I think we, at the end of last episode, wished everybody a happy holidays,
That we did.
but happy holidays again. Um,
Yeah,
Literally
hopefully
just
everybody
passed for
enjoyed
us.
their festivities.
And
Yeah,
all right, so I mean, I'll just keep it short and sweet. I mean, I've been playing Path of Exile and Helldivers. That's pretty much my two main squeezes right now.
that's
I
fair.
tried a little bit more of Delta Force. I think I'm going to put that down for the foreseeable future, not because it's bad or anything. I actually do enjoy it. It's just too much right now. Like
Okay.
between Helldivers and Path of Exile and stuff in Space Marine that I want to keep playing and trying out. Um,
hmm
just to like get into another like huge multiplayer game like Delta Force, it's just not the time. And the single player campaign for Black Hawk Down is coming out in a few weeks, so maybe, but that's a paid version. That's supposed to be like its own, yeah,
Yes.
premium product
You
offering.
you were
So,
explaining how it was basically like the core gameplay modes and things like that are going to be
mhm.
paid, but there's like a free to play. Is the
Well,
it's the
no, the only
extraction part that's
thing,
free to play, right?
no, the only thing that is a paid premium is the single player.
Okay. So and
Yeah,
then the multiplayer is all the free to play stuff. And
yeah.
that's I'm sure they've
And
got
I didn't
different
know this.
DLC transactions and stuff.
Yes, I didn't know this prior to like last week, but apparently it's a direct tie-in to the Ridley Scott movie. Like that came out,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, all those years ago. Which I
Wow.
actually rewatched recently. It's very good. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's a direct tie-in to that movie. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm gonna put that down for right now, and I'm gonna stick with Path of Exile and Helldivers.
that's fair.
Yeah, it's
I
just
mean, you
too
got your
much.
fill from the beta, you know. It
Yeah,
was
more or
really
less.
just a tryout period, you know.
Yeah,
And I would say you got your time worth in it because you went from like not sure about it to like it's fun, you know. You're back on the train after
right.
being put off for a bit. So I'd
It,
say you got what you needed out of it.
yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's really more of like an issue of time than anything else. Like I would play it more. I just don't have the time. I would rather play other games. So
That's fair.
that's the main barrier to entry for me. Um, yeah, Path of Exile, I've gotten a lot further in now. I still haven't beaten the game, but because I only get like an hour or two to play at a time. But I still think it's really good. I think it's better than it's a different type of isometric ARPG than Diablo, but I am enjoying it more. Like you don't just go in
That's good.
and mindlessly destroy everything in the room. Like you actually
It's a
have
bit
to,
more involved.
yeah, you have to actually
Yeah,
work for your victory. So
that's good.
yeah, I like it.
Good.
So tell me what you've been up to.
So, aside from the usual, like I said, I have my fighting games, I have my gotcha games, and all that stuff. I primarily have been playing a decent amount of Street Fighter and Girls Frontline as just like when I'm editing, that's what I'm playing.
Mhm.
But like I said last week, and like I tried to commit week after week, I tried to go back and play a lot of the games that I missed, and I'm not happy with how many I went back to or how many I felt out, but I did get to feel out a few. I went back and played a bit more Fruit Bus. The thought was fine for what it was. I
Fruit
went
bus.
back and finished Mirage Feathers, which I mentioned a couple months ago, which is like almost like a Star Fox thing, but not really. It kills me that I keep forgetting what kind of game it is, but it's basically like an auto on the rail shooter, but it's like
Okay.
it's like you're constantly rushing forward. There's an old Sega game that I keep forgetting the name of that eludes me, but the whole point is it was very very short but entertaining for what it was. It's got nice little music. It's a nice little indie game. It was fine for what it was. I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
I downloaded a game called Reverse Collapse Codename Bakery, which is a remake of a really old strategy game that's more in line with like Fire Emblem and Advance Wars.
But it's
That's
about baking
actually
stuff.
no. It's that's just the name of like it's it's just the name of like the operation that takes place in there in the story itself. It's actually like a remake of the game that kicked off the universe that's in the game I've been playing, Girls Frontline. So it's like a friend of mine recommended it to me, and I went back to give it a shot, and I'm enjoying it for what it is. It is a little dense. It's hard to juggle. This was kind of like a fly by the seat of my pants, try to play as many games as possible, but I played a couple levels in that, and I enjoyed it for what it was. So there's that. I played a game I mentioned a couple times on here called Infinity Nikki, which,
I remember you mentioning that.
It turned out to be another fucking gacha game, and it's just like, it didn't need to be. I wanted to, like, just a neat little platformer, and, like, the gimmick of it just isn't for me also. I'm probably not going to go back to it. Music's nice, not much to say about it. There's another game that I went back to that both of us have played before. I wanted to like almost like pay my respects. I went back and I re-downloaded X Defiant because
Really?
I heard something about it that piqued my interest. I'm just like, whoever's in charge kind of like gave up, and they like uploaded
Obviously.
what can only be compared to a dev build. So it's
Okay.
just like unfinished parts of the menu, half-finished factions are available. Everything in the store is free. You don't have to pay for anything. It's very interesting. It's like I'm present in the morgue, or like the funeral home when they're prepping the body being buried. That's the best way I can explain it. I won't say I like the game anymore, but having all the content that was like locked behind the different currencies and all that stuff, it made the game feel fuller for obvious reasons. It's also a little scummy because like there's apparently a shit ton of skins that they just dumped for free that were going to be trickled out over like the course of like a year. I'm just like, it was such an interesting experience to just go through the menus of this game as like a dev build that was like officially released. It's very strange, but there was that. That was the bulk of what I played, and to kind of get me started on my first little tangent, I played
boy, an Anthony tangent. Let's hear it.
Let me set the stage for you. How familiar are you with Marvel vs. Capcom?
I know it's a fighting game. I know you like it at the end.
It's a legacy fighting game. It was a happenstance kind of thing where Capcom was developing X-Men games at the time, and it's like a little hidden bonus. They included Akuma in one of the fighting games that they did called X-Men Children of the Atom. And over time, it was X-Men Children of the Atom, then they made Marvel Superheroes, then Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, then X-Men versus Street Fighter, then Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, then Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and then lastly, they did Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. That came out 2016, 2018, I completely forget. But the whole point is, the reason I'm telling you this is that last game wasn't very well received. The third one was phenomenal. It was very well received. And then Infinite was kind of like an asset flip, where they took up a lot of the stuff, but they didn't have like the right shaders and stuff like that. So it was a very unappealing, off-putting game to look at for a lot of people. It was very content light. It didn't have as many characters as the previous games. The balancing was weird. Because of the fact they were taking fighters that were meant for a 3-button fighter, Magic series, like medium heavy attacks, and giving them like different punches and kicks, a lot of the movesets felt very awkward. The whole point is, it was not a very well received or commercially successful game. It was kind of like mocked when it was around, but me and Harrison played it. It's got very fun gameplay. It's just a little awkward in some areas, and it's not the most visually appealing. Flash forward to now, somebody put out a mod called Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond, and this mod I love, but not for the playing it reasons. I love it because it's like, it was directed by like this guy in the fighting game community who is so full of himself. He's the most content creator man of the fighting game community, and like it honestly hurts the community in so many ways, the way he like attracts certain people to it and the focuses he puts out there. And he went to direct this. It started as like a little thing, like somebody put a shader on Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It's like, oh, look how much better the game looks. And he's just like, we should do a thing. So they were going to do like this whole mod that made the game look nicer, right? And over the course of months, this guy put $30,000 of his own money into it. He hired way too many people, paid these people way too much money, and basically all it is, it's like a glorified shader pack with some cheeky references thrown in and a couple like extra modes, right? And it's like, it's uneven and it's not finished. Like, not all of the different character and costume combinations have full portraits. Some characters were done by some modders and some were done by others, and it's all lopsided and uneven. It looks like it was done in the course of a month, but instead it was like this guy went and got like 40 mentally ill people to like argue and swabble over making different parts of the game, and it's just a fucking mess. So I love the fact that somebody wasted $30,000 on it, but I've been playing that with Harrison, and we're just sitting there going, you know, this game, it really feels like it did like 6 to 8 years ago, however long we played it. And you have all these people online just going, oh my God, Marvel's so back. It's so great. It's so wonderful. I'm just like, the game plays the same fucking way it did years ago. And it turned into this whole fucking thing where you have people gassing up all these older games that were good originally, but they were told to hate it by some personalities or whatever.
Tell me what to think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you gotta understand, like, you know how we talk about Call of Duty influencers?
Yeah.
And how they just have like this mob of people around them that just parrot whatever they hear. These types of people are in the fighting game community also. And it's coupled with the fighting game stupidity of like, fighting games have like this honeymoon period, right? Like, a game comes out, they love it for like a month or so, and then after a couple weeks they go back and they say like, oh, this older game was so much better, look how good we had it. And it's gotten to so now people are talking about how Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is good now because somebody made like a shader pack for $30,000 basically. You have people talking about how Street Fighter V is fucking amazing, which I'll be honest, I love Street Fighter V, but everybody fucking hates it because, you know, that's just how it was. You have people talking like, oh, Tekken 7 was the best game ever. Meanwhile, people are saying back when the game was released, it's like, it's the cheapest game ever. It's not that good. So basically, all I'm trying to get at is the fighting game community has just been annoying all month because you have self-important people, you know, talking about how they brought games back. You have all these people who weren't around or hated the games when they were new saying they're good now because the new ones are bad. And it's just been a fucking nightmare. I hate fighting games sometimes. I hate the people around them.
The highs and lows that you go through with the fighting game community and the fighting game scene overall is something I do not envy. Although I kind of feel like I experienced that, like being in the Destiny community. Because all the problems and the turmoil that you're describing, it all feels very familiar, and I just find it kind of humorous.
Yeah, to be completely fair, every community is kind of dealing with that because ever since, you know, 2020, when everybody was home and had nothing to fucking do, a bunch of communities and fan groups got flooded with just casual players and annoying people that have no business being there, but all of a sudden, like, different games and different series are now their entire personality. And as soon as that happens, they're just like, I love Thing, but Thing also must change, and you, who has been here forever with Thing, you must go. Like, that's basically how it is across the board. So that's how you end up with situations where people who were never around for things that were around initially telling you that the thing you like is good when it's bad when it's good, and everything needs to change in order to cater to their whims. It's just, with the fighting game community, it happens like basically every week because it is full of like the fakest and most horrible people. You know, it's the same terrible shit we see with like something like a Call of Duty, but like the fighting game community isn't large enough to buffer it with normal people. So there's just mentally ill, terminally online people giving you the worst opinions you've ever heard constantly about
every
these
representation of like fighting game fans that I've seen, not a positive experience.
They don't even necessarily play the game. Like, they're the kind of people that would go to a local tournament and just like make it all about them without playing or performing poorly. It's just people make these things about their identity. You know, they make it about like, you know, oh, I always loved game. I'm game biggest fan. And they act like they're an authority on it. but the most they have is like they watch like somebody like this guy who made this mod. They have more hours watching people like that than they ever will in any fighting game ever, but they'll act like they're the authority because they heard the guy, you know, the hype men at the top basically giving them opinions, you know?
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's just like,
gamers.
Yeah. Some of them even aren't even gamers. Some of them are just like I said, whatever casual or normie, if you want to call them, that rolled in when they had nothing else to fucking do, you know? But yeah, I guess that turned into like a industry-wide rant, but the fighting game is very frustrating and disappointing often, and it's all nonsense.
Yeah. Something a little different. I don't know if you heard about this. I feel like you would have in your travels, but did you hear about the massive Halo leak that happened
Yes, I
a
did.
couple days ago?
Yes, I did.
Apparently, like approximately 100 gigs of classic Halo content was leaked, including the 1999 demo, and the fact that Halo was supposed to be a third-person shooter before they made the transition to first-person, and it's just very fascinating to see what that game could have looked like way back when, instead of what we got.
Fascinating is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating is a phenomenal way to put it. I gotta say, like, it's finicky. I've tried to run it, like the beta content, just to see, you know, what it is from a first person.
Even your computer should be able to run that.
Shut up, you jerk. But I've seen plenty of footage and inside stuff, and I mean, I've said it before. I love cut content and just digging through and looking at
it's just cool to see what never made it in.
Yeah, it's cool to see what never made it in, what connects the pieces. And I gotta say, it's kind of sad. As I'm watching this third person demo of what Halo could have been, right? And I'm looking at it's in a very rough state. You know, it's
Even
it's not quite.
Chief
It's obviously
looks
not balanced.
drastically different from what the
yeah.
final product looked like.
Yeah, everything looked different. Like hallways that you can kind of see level assets shaping up to be that you can kind of recognize, but everything looks drastically different. But there's obviously a lot of DNA that you can notice because it is still Blam.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there looking at this, and a grim thought hits me. I'm just like, I know it's kind of biased. I know there's, you know, the scales are kind of weighted when it comes to interest, right? But I'm sitting there going, this third-person experiment of what Halo could have been is more appealing to my eyes than the fucking Unreal tech demo that they showed a couple months ago of, like, whatever the next Halo project is going to be.
Yeah, that was recent, right? Because they're not 343 anymore. They're now Halo Studio. I think we talked about
Halo
this.
Studio. We did a whole thing on it, but I'm just saying, like, I'm sitting here is because you can see, like, you know, it's not finished. It's not even close to finished. You see, like, just a touch in there of, like, craftsmen were here and they're building something. You're just not here with them right now. And it's like, compared to where Halo's going in this, I think, you know, you have Bungie, then you have 343, and they're going into what they call the third chapter.
Yeah, we'll see. It's probably all the same people.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I'm looking at it and I'm just like their vision of what Halo will be eventually does not appeal or look at nearly as polished as this jumping point of a beta that is this I forget what it was called. Like, there was an internal name. I forget what I glanced at the name before looking at the actual content, but it's just like this third person Halo, and it's like the ground textures look nice. Like somebody worked on this. Like, even if it was never going to see the light of day, they worked their ass on it, or they found the right one from the
well,
the
now 26
to,
years later, it finally coming to the surface.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta remember, like, Halo it's not necessarily as big a tech demo as a lot of the games from the generation later. Like, you know, the 2006 was like the last kind of gasp for that kind of stuff. But back on the original Xbox, this was meant to take advantage of that hardware at the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was also designed. I mean, there was a whole lot going on with, like, hey, this has got to be playable on Mac, it's got to be playable on PC, but, like, that was like an Xbox flagship title.
Yeah, and it was going to be on Mac, like you said. That's just crazy how it all turned out.
It's so fun to, like, I know I definitely do it way more than you do, but you can appreciate like this kind of like just looking back behind the curtain of history and just seeing that. But it also made me think of the future and go like, I don't know about that. But yeah, no, the Halo stuff, very interesting. And I can't wait to see, because I only saw a lot of the Halo 1 stuff so far, but I saw, I don't care for Reach, but I saw some, beta Reach stuff, some Halo 2 stuff.
Did you not even like the Reach story?
I wasn't a big fan of Reach top to bottom, I'll be honest.
Really?
I thought there were some cool moments in Reach. I'm not going to say it's completely hopeless. It's not like a terrible game, right? But Halo Reach is not a game I particularly enjoy. There's some cool moments.
I mean, I can understand not liking the multiplayer, but the single player, the story of that game, I loved. Thought it was great.
I don't like it. Like I said, I don't hate it. Like there are bad games out there that I hate. Reach just didn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate it appeals to other people. That's the kindest thing I can say, kinda. One day I will go back and replay it just to see if it was just where I was at the time, but it's not. It was never really for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting to see the project files and all that, and I'll dig through it just all the same, just because that stuff interests me.
Yeah. That was something small that I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I was going to bring it up if you didn't, so that was
Cool.
It was definitely good to get it on the way. You had asked me right before this. We were having a minor conversation. I was about to explain something to you, and you told me to just save it, for this, just because we don't have too much to talk about this week.
Yeah, something about credit card companies.
Yeah, so you know me, I've bitched a lot about meddling in the creative process, and I'm against it across the board regardless of how it happens, but one of the big ones I focus on is people with no business in the creative process at all meddling with things overseas that come over through the localization process. Another way this is happening is credit card companies have been playing a kind of a dirty game with Japanese content. It's tricky to really say how this is going to pan out for video games, because it's kind of been a light's been cast on it. But basically what happens is different websites and different payment processors for anime, manga, and different services, like even dating services for like people who are into that shit in Japan, Visa will just shut down the capability for them to accept payments or to spend money on that, which is very sketchy. You should be able to spend your money and your credit wherever you want. Yeah, but so this has been quietly going on. It's been working way off, and it's the same thing with censorship, where it starts low level, where it's just like people either don't hear about it or it sounds unsavory, like why do you care that some dating service across the world is getting shut down? You're not even in that. It's like, all right, but I don't want people should be able to spend their money. It's like, what do you care if some like basically open library for all this older content you can't get anywhere else is shut down? You're not in the country, you can't take advantage. I'm like, this kind of shit is wrong regardless. It has only crept into games so much as pornographic material is concerned, and like I said, that's like it's kind of expected that companies start there, because it's like, who's going to hear about that and who's going to be vocal about that? You should be. I think everything, anything that involves the process of either somebody getting involved to force a creator to change what they're offering, or just flat out intervening with a customer, middlemen should not have a say, right? If you are not interested in letting people spend their money the way they want or the credit the way they want, you shouldn't be involved. So that's been going on for a while. And then it turns out the CEO has been rather open about, the CEO of overseas affairs in Japan has been rather open about his disdain for these products and wanting to interrupt people from being able to buy or spend in that way over there. And then you have, certain legislators in Japan are basically trying to fight against this, and they're giving them the runaround, and they're saying, well, it's not the guys at the top, it's actually the guys in the middle, and then you can't reach the guys in the middle. So it's a tangled mess over there. I'm hoping it stops, because, I mean, for obvious reasons, but I'm hoping the fact that it's been caught relatively early compared to certain things, I talk about all the bad shit that's happening, but that's different, different locations. It hasn't really credit card companies haven't really impacted gaming on a wider scale. It's really very niche right now, but hopefully there's this guy in the Japanese legislature who he's been in the industry for a long fucking time. He is actually responsible for creating one of the first anime I ever watched, and he has been on this tear about, you know, anti-censorship, anti-foreign meddling. Like, that's what he ran on, and now he's in office. So
Wow.
hopefully it doesn't go much further, especially as culture changes. Like, they're losing how much pressure they can push. I'm just hoping it doesn't go anywhere. But to explain exactly what's going on is basically credit card companies are just denying people services and denying services the option to use them as payment processors, and then giving everybody the runaround as far as why that is and who's responsible. That's all there is with that.
Okay. I thought there was more to that, honestly.
No, that's just it. Hopefully there isn't more to that. As far, like, if I end up talking about it again, it's only because it's progressed to a certain degree. But I'll you know, it'll, if it comes up, it'll come up.
Did you see that Valve, they make more money per employee than Amazon, Microsoft, and Netflix combined?
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I didn't know that it was only a team of 400 people. I thought that they were a bigger company.
It's a very small team, relatively speaking, and it's, if you ever get a chance, you should really look into how Valve is ran. Like, I give them a lot of shit, and everybody gives them a lot of shit for not really producing much. You know, it's like they run Steam and they collect a lot of money off of that, right? But the way they handle it is both good and bad, in my opinion, because you basically have a bunch of people who sit around and occasionally, like, they'll try like little tech demos, and if they don't want to work on it, they don't have to, and, you know, they push it forward. There's a reason they very rarely put something out. It's because of the relaxed nature of what's expected of employees, and also like how things get greenlit or don't. It basically, you know, it's almost like a company is on maintenance mode, you know? Like, we talk about games that way. The company is almost like that, where they just wait around for an idea to hit or something to click.
They've been coasting pretty smoothly for like almost 30 years.
They can afford to.
Well, that's my point. You know, they put out somewhere around 10 games or something, and every one of them happens to be a banger.
Valve, you know, go ahead.
No, well, I wasn't really gonna, you know, say much more than that. Every one of them happens to be a banger, so it's like they don't really have to do anything.
That's
it's
true.
maintenance mode in a good way, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I like, when it comes to Valve, it's actually interesting. Like, not all of their games really appeal to me, if that makes sense.
Well, me neither.
I enjoy Half-Life. I actually really enjoy Half-Life multiplayer. I think Half-Life 2 is a very impressive game for its time, and I enjoy it in a way I don't enjoy most games, even if it's not like ecstatic, like huge fan of it. Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, probably one of the most replayable games of all time that you can always go back to like once a year or something like that. It's very phenomenal, even if it's content light. And there's a lot to say about how Left 4 Dead 2 came out as like a glorified expansion pack. But and then you have like Counter-Strike, which is a classic. Team Fortress 2. I even like Team Fortress 1.
I never played Team Fortress 1.
I've
seen it, and it's definitely like the change from 1 to 2 is like pretty massive.
Yeah. I hate to say that it's nothing special, but I can't really recommend like, oh, you've got to try it at least once, you know? I can't really say that about it.
So that might be like the only game that from Valve that's just like a meh.
Yeah. I just gotta say, it's like they are a very competent company when it comes to releases. So I guess, you know, the trade-off, even though they don't make much, they have a pretty good track record. I'm not too keen on Deadlock.
Yeah, what I've seen,
Half-Life Alyx wasn't for me.
Doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, so we'll see what's on the horizon for them. I mean, basically what I'm getting at is that, like, there's very few companies where I can say like there's like a gold standard. And even if it's not for me, I think Valve still maintains that. But it's only from the fact that they don't fucking make much. There's very few companies I put them up there. Like, it's just like Capcom's kind of like that for me to a certain degree. I don't know what's on the horizon for Valve. People worry what will happen when you know, some of the old guards start either retiring or passing on. They're getting old. You know, with the leadership at Steam. But it's tough to talk about Valve because of how their release flow goes, right? Because like for years in the files, there's been references to Left 4 Dead 3. There's been references to different Half-Life projects, but it's just like they're willing to cancel or take their time on anything, so none of these little leaks and teases mean anything.
I mean, Half-Life 3 has been like data mined in the files for fucking years, and I don't give any credence to any leak when it comes to Valve.
I mean, recently, we had the Team Fortress 2 comic close, and they kind of teased the possibility of like Team Fortress 3 stuff. When Half-Life 2 had its anniversary, it was the first time we saw Episode 3, which was never coming out, obviously. Who knows? It could. Maybe they could just say like, oh, whatever, here's what we have. Kind of like what they did for certain beta content. But it's just, they're such an interesting company to me because it feels like they lost steam in like a motivation factor, but never a quality factor. As like I'll say whatever about Half-Life Alyx.
That makes
some people
sense.
love Half-Life Alyx, but like basically it's like they don't really make anything, but like it wasn't like it's just like a bunch of talented individuals that were really active in the late 90s and the early 2000s are just like kind of like sitting around going, maybe we'll do something, So.
Yeah,
but
well,
so Valve's an anomaly, but
they just make so much money. Well, because
oh, you were talking about how much money they were making?
Well, how much money each employee makes is more than like all the
Yes.
biggest tech companies combined, which is crazy. I mean, that value is redacted, but somehow we know that like it's at the top of the list, but you can't
doesn't surprise
see
me.
how much it is. The next one is Facebook with like employees making an average of $89 an hour, which is just preposterous.
Where does Apple land on that list?
Third.
Okay, that gap kind of makes sense because like I think of Apple where it's just like like their cash inflow is so high they can afford to overpay considering what they do, but not enough to like to hurt their bank account. It's like Apple charges the upcharge on their products is like 500%.
Yeah.
And then you have like the different things on top of that, but because of that everybody gets treated well. With Valve, it's like you have the constant inflow of Steam purchases and you have a small team, so you can pay these guys whatever the fuck, and occasionally they'll make a new game and then they'll just make bank on it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
well, that's an interesting little tidbit.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
Anywho, go on.
What else? Where is I had a thing here. Hold on. Where did I put you? So have you last week we kind of recapped on Witcher 4, right?
Yeah.
The other side of the coin, the other big announcement that we didn't really talk about was Intergalactic. Is that what it's called? Intergalactic
Naughty
the
Dog
Heretic
game.
Project?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not interested in the slightest in that game. Not
It's
the
just
fucking slightest.
I'm torn because I really like the futuristic retro style that they're going for.
Yeah.
But everything Naughty Dog has done in the past like 15 years is just I don't know. And also the fact that they said that they like used concept art from what was supposed to be Jack 4, like immediately got me interested. I don't know. I mean, I'm just gonna sit and wait. I can't do anything else about that right now anyway. But I would like to see what they have up their sleeve.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't have that same kind of like
I wouldn't
passing interest based on what they had. It's I don't know. It's just such an uninteresting project to me. It's like everything that was in that trailer. It was like cater made to like almost like what was that? What's a good thing to compare it to? Like how. What year was it that Stranger Things came out? Do you remember?
Oh God.
It was a while
Shit.
ago.
Yeah, like 6-7 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. And like when that happened, there were just like a shit ton of projects that were just coming out that was like, do you remember the 80s? Do you remember this? Do you remember that? And it's just like every shot of that trailer for this game is meant to get your attention a certain way that's just like very advertiser fed.
The spaceship that girl was flying in was a fucking Porsche. You know, like she was
Yeah.
drinking out of like a Burger King cup or something,
He was
and
wearing
wearing
Adidas or
Adidas. Yeah,
Nike. It was Adidas, yeah. And
listening to
fucking, it's
like
just like,
Duran Duran or some other
yeah,
80s
it's
band.
it's all just like thing and product placement, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's being made by a company that has pretty much bled all of its fun out of the company. Like I saw them say during that trailer, it's just like from the makers of Crash Bandicoot and Jack and Daxter. I'm just
Yeah.
like, fuck you. Fuck off, because number one, you're not interested in making games like that anymore, and number two, I doubt if I were to go in and do like a little like head count, I doubt any of the people are there
Right.
like that were involved in all this. Like so many of them have left over the years. Like there are so many companies like that where they say they're the maker of, and back in the day that used to be okay to do, because basically what would happen is you wouldn't have as high turnover rate, and it wouldn't matter if you did, because there was a certain, not industry culture but company culture, that would companies were better at like keeping culture the way that the company's known for. It's just like everybody, it was like acclimating to working at a company and living and breathing what the company's known for. That just, companies don't do that anymore. The closest ones that do are maybe Nintendo, because Nintendo is so extremely harsh with its branding, where the Japanese
To a
Disney,
fault, I
where they
would
can,
say.
yeah, so it's just like you work at Nintendo, there's like a guidebook you got to follow and live and breathe every day. And it's like, it's not necessarily the most unique, it's very safe. But if you don't live and breathe that, you're out. And that ends up defending the brands, sometimes to its detriment. But like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like Naughty Dog and this Intergalactic game are so incredibly unappealing. And because they're unappealing, people are calling them unappealing. And now it's getting to the point where it's just another game where developers, actors, team leads are on social media fighting with people. And it's just like, how much more of this can you really do? Like, how much of this do we need to learn from before you people just stop? It's just like I don't get like the constant hostile nature. Like I guess I kind
Oh,
of do, because I've mentioned these people are going to be kicking and screaming because they just hate everybody
the
and they just want to make like slop. Like I don't get it.
well, it's how long is the money going to keep flowing in? That's your answer.
Yeah, I
And I
mean
mean, most people aren't privy to the stuff that goes on, like in the
yeah.
industry overall. So it doesn't matter. Like, they're gonna keep making this stuff.
Not necessarily. It's just it feels that way because every company's different. Like we get done ragging on one company like BioWare, for example, and they're doing their whole thing with the Veilguard, where they're saying, oh, it's just a bunch of haters, and this is just after they were saying that everything's fine. It turns out everything's not fine, and they're looking for scapegoats. So then we just immediately move on to another company that hasn't had the hard knock. So it feels like it's never ending, but it really does have its limits. That's why we're starting to hear internal murmurings of like, hey, if you've got certain content in your game, you shouldn't be brazen about it. Now they got to trick you into buying the game, and you have all those consultation companies, hiding their names on these different projects and whatnot. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to say about Heretic, because this came out a while ago, and we never got a chance to talk about it. But I remember, I think it was Variety, the magazine Variety. They did like top 10 industry leaders, and Neil Druckmann was on it.
Sure.
And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, this guy has like one game under his belt.
Yeah.
It's like he slid into the development of The Last of Us 1, and then he wormed his way into The Last of Us 2 and Uncharted 4, got the people ousted from those projects, and then basically put his own spin on it. And he's been remaking the same games ever since, and like that's his claim to fame. It's like this guy is nothing.
Well,
He's like the worst parts of the industry, but people just fillet him like he's like Kojima, and even Kojima gets filleted way too much. But it's like, I don't know. I guess I just wanted to rant about Intergalactic because it just doesn't look fun or interesting, but people are gonna gas it up as like the next big thing or whatever, and it's like, I don't know. It's dirty seeing that. Like, maybe I'd be less offended if the trailer didn't open with from the creators of Naughty Dog and Jack and Daxter. Say what you want, dude. Like the whole thing with The Last of Us 2 when it came out, I'm just like, it's not for me. But it's like now you're making this other piece of crap, but you're also saying that you're responsible. I will be surprised if the number of people who worked both on Crash Bandicoot or Jack and Daxter and Intergalactic was higher than 10%. I would be surprised.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all fucked.
Yeah, it's all fucked.
I mean, I like to err on the side of optimism. So I'm not like excited for Intergalactic or anything, but it looks the cinematic was cool enough to me that I just would like to see more. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. I know you are not of that opinion,
Not in
but
the
that's
slightest.
fine. Fine. Um, Anything else you got? Because I'm pretty much out of stuff to talk about. It's been a very hectic week for me.
Yeah, no, that's just about it for me. It's just
Yeah, a slow week.
end of the year, not much is slow week. End of the year, everyone's kind of throwing in the towel. It's just just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been
Yeah,
a long 2024.
It has. I think brighter times are on the horizon. We just got to get through some bullshit first.
Naturally.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, I guess that was episode 36 of the Pregame Network podcast. A bit of a slow one, so if you stuck around, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And that was the last show of the year.
Yep. Yes, it was. I'll see everybody next year, I guess.
Yeah, 2025.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.